This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I am your host, Darren McKee, and with me, as usual, is Adam Gardner.
What's up, cuboids?
We have a great show for you today. I'm going to look into whether Sakana's AI scientist changed its code.
Oh, yeah.
And Adam is going to explore whether people say hello on the telephone because of Alexander Graham Bell's fiancé's name.
Yeah, that's right.
But first, a quick note of appreciation to all of our Patreon supporters. And most recently, Philip Gadd gave us a generous contribution, so we wanted to mention that specifically. And everyone should know, a Patreon contribution is not at all required. We hope you just enjoy the show, but of course, we appreciate it.
Yep, thanks everybody. We definitely appreciate it.
And now, on with the show. Regular listeners of this show know that I'm concerned about various risks from advanced AI systems. I even wrote a book about it. It's called Uncontrollable. You can find it on Amazon.
Great book.
Such as the broad category of misalignment. Misalignment includes current issues, such as the amplification of misinformation, various deepfake scams, cyber attacks, and how many of the large language models out there are not yet as reliable as most of us want them to be. But there's also the issue of power-seeking behavior. This is when an AI system acts in a way that goes against the designer's or developer's intentions to acquire more power or fewer constraints for itself. Broad categories, which one can imagine, but there could be examples like a system making copies of itself when it wasn't supposed to, AI systems engaging in persuasion techniques or acquiring money, or various other actions that it was not supposed to do. That's the main thing here, right? Current AI systems are not so advanced to do these types of things yet, but these behaviors, or actions, depending on what you want to call them, are likely going to fall along a continuum of various degrees of power-seeking behavior. As such, it is useful to pay attention to current models to see if there are any warning signs, canaries in the AI mine, so to speak. So, in mid-August, when I heard about an AI system that manipulated its own code, I was intrigued.
Yeah.
An Ars Technica article by Benj Edwards had this headline, quote, "Research AI model unexpectedly attempts to modify its own code to extend runtime."
That is alarming.
And then the subheadline, "Facing time constraints, Sakana's AI scientist attempted to change limits placed by researchers." Oh no, the uprising has begun?
Absolutely.
Well, perhaps not. Perhaps so. Let's see what's going on. Let's explore further.
Hold off the EMP. Let's listen to the segment.
Don't scrub ahead. First, let's get some background on what Sakana's AI scientist is. Sakana, or Sakana, maybe, is a Tokyo-based company, and their AI scientist is a new initiative done in collaboration with researchers at Oxford University and the University of British Columbia. Go Canada. From their website, this is an overview, the AI scientist is a fully automated pipeline for end-to-end paper generation enabled by recent advances in foundation models. Given a broad research direction starting from a simple initial codebase, such as an available open-source codebase of prior research on GitHub, the AI scientist can perform idea generation, literature search, experiment planning, experiment iterations, figure generation, manuscript writing, and reviewing to produce insightful papers. Furthermore, the AI scientist can run in an open-ended loop using its previous ideas and feedback to improve the next generation of ideas, thus emulating the human scientific community.
Oh boy.
Well, yes, I thought maybe we should just talk about this AI scientist anyway, because it's so interesting of what they're trying to do here.
If it does a good job, this is the kind of thing that starts something significant.
Listen to me carefully. Further expanding on some of those main processes, and this is also from their website, idea generation. So given a starting template, the AI scientist first brainstorms, that's in quotes, a diverse set of novel research directions. They provide the AI scientist with a starting code template, also in quotes, of an existing topic that they wish to have the AI scientist further explore. The AI scientist is then free to explore any possible research direction. Template also includes a LaTeX folder that contains style files and section headers for paper writing, not actual LaTeX, that's computer for people who are more like me. Adam's laughing away. And we allow it to search Semantic Scholar to make sure its idea is novel. And then you have experimental iteration. So given an idea and a template, the second phase is that the scientist first executes the proposed experiments and then obtains and produces plots to visualize its results. It makes a note describing what each plot contains, enabling the saved figures and experimental notes to provide all the information required to write up the paper. Next step, you have the paper write-up. So then the AI scientist produces a concise and informative write-up of its progress in the style of a standard machine learning conference proceeding in LaTeX. It uses Semantic Scholar to autonomously find relevant papers to cite. And then we have automated paper reviewing. They say that a key aspect of this work is the development of an automated paper reviewer capable of evaluating generated papers with near human accuracy.
Wow.
The generated reviews can be used to either improve the project or as feedback for future generations for open-ended ideation. This enables a continuous feedback loop, allowing the AI scientist to iteratively improve its research output. When combined with the most capable large language models, the AI scientist is capable of producing papers judged by our automated reviewer as weak except, that's in quotes, at a top machine learning conference. This is just a standard category of different papers being accepted or not.
Yeah.
At least that's what they say and want you to think, right? This is kind of like a press release, right?
Sure.
Now, some people think the quality of the output is much worse.
Okay. So what do human reviewers think?
Oh, so some people are like, this is all garbage.
Yeah.
Now,
it's unfortunate.
Not quite. It's not like truly hot garbage, right? Because there's sentences.
So are a lot of real papers.
Well, that's true too, right? So problem number one, are they actually of sufficient quality, right? And maybe they're not. I would also say, as I often say, well, it's only X. It's only 2024. Maybe it's going to get better. Just maybe, right?
Absolutely. Right. You mentioned specifically the latest large language model. What about the next large language model? Right?
Exactly. And then some people also are worried this will lead to a pollution of the landscape of research papers, with journals and reviewers be inundated with lesser quality material, or even if it's decent-ish quality, just a flood of material that could be enough to overwhelm them and push out human scientists. So there's another interesting issue here, which is that, as we know, a lot of science is based on data, and usually a human can tell you where that data came from. But with AI scientists like this, it may not be so easy to figure out how they actually got the data that they're using and where it came from.
That's very important, and I think that's going forward, that needs to be very important with AI, right? Like if I ask ChatGPT something and there's no sources, it's not really useful because I have to independently verify it.
Right.
Whereas I ask Bing Copilot for something, it gives me references.
Yes.
I still need to click on those links and verify that what it's saying is correct if I really want to be sure about what I'm asking. But it's useful because half of that work's been done for me.
Totally.
So, of course, in this case, they can do that, right?
And sometimes I've clicked those links and they don't contain the information.
Absolutely.
But the information was correct. So I don't know where they got it from.
Oh, that's interesting.
So either the link is wrong or like there's some other hidden inference going on to other material I can't quite see. Now, depending on the research paper, like clearly this is not this is a certain type of, AI type papers where they're not doing experiments in the real world using hardware and using so-called hands-on material.
Sure.
This is theoretical, conceptual code or other types of things which could be manipulated. Otherwise, the whole thing wouldn't work at all at this stage, right?
Let's plug this thing into a robot that's got some beakers and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Some pipettes or whatever.
There's always beakers and pipettes. That's how all science works. And like, how's this scientist going to wear a lab coat, Adam? Explain to that. So that said, one could say that, okay, if you just have enough compute, so to speak, you just churn out paper after paper and some other AI verifies that it's correct, somehow checking that, and you have enough of these checks and balances that it can be replicated at least, even if it's maybe not that useful. All I have to say is I think there could be an issue here about how do you know where the data came from? But at the same time, there could be other checks and balances to address that. Now, Sakana is not oblivious to various risks and concerns. They have a whole limitations and challenges section. They say in its current form, the AI scientist has several shortcomings. And they expect all of these will improve, likely dramatically, in future versions with the inclusion of multimodal models and other advancements in the world of AI and whatnot, right?
Excellent.
Number one that they list. The AI scientist currently does have any vision capabilities, so it's unable to fix visual issues with the paper or read plots. Yes, we're in a world where, of course, something can generate plots of data, but it can't actually read them.
So that's why the text description of what the plot says is important for this to be able to iterate itself.
So sometimes the generated plots are unreadable. Tables sometimes exceed the width of the page, and the page layout is often suboptimal. And so when you have multimodal foundation modules, that would be ameliorated, at least to some extent. Number two, the AI scientist can incorrectly implement its ideas or make unfair comparisons to baselines, leading to misleading results. This is sort of bad scientific thinking, as one might say. And number three, the AI scientist occasionally makes critical errors when writing and evaluating results. For example, it struggles to compare the magnitude of two numbers, which is a known problem in different large language models.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's like, is this bigger than that? It's not.
What could it cost? $100?
It's about $100. It's just because the models are going through propositional statements on some level, but only because of prediction. So it doesn't know that things are obvious in certain ways that we might.
Interesting.
To partially address this, we make sure all experimental results are reproducible, storing all files that are executed. Additionally, and they state, and this is a quote, as with previous technological advances, the AI scientist has the potential to be used in unethical ways. For instance, it has the potential to be deployed to conduct unethical research. It could also lead to unintended harm if the AI scientist conducts unsafe research. For example, if it were encouraged to find novel, interesting biological materials and given access to cloud labs where robots perform wet lab biology experiments, it could, without the overseer's intent, create new dangerous viruses or poisons that harm people before we realize what has happened. Even in computers, if tasked to create new, interesting, functional software, it could create dangerous computer viruses.
AI mad scientist.
All of this is very concerning given the rapid rate of improvement and the diffuse deployment of all these large language models. But did it edit its own code or what, Darren? Come on.
Yes.
So this is backstory. Come on. Who cares about context? From the lengthy paper Sakana put out and covered in the Ars Technica article, there's another long quote, I apologize, safe code execution. The current implementation of the AI scientist has minimal direct sandboxing in the code, leading to several unexpected and sometimes undesirable outcomes if not appropriately guarded against. For example, in one run, the AI scientist wrote code in the experiment file that initiated a system call to relaunch itself, causing an uncontrolled increase in Python processes and eventually necessitated manual intervention.
Hilarious.
In another run, the AI scientist edited the code to save a checkpoint for every update step, which took up nearly a terabyte of storage. Add more, the computer guy finds this very funny.
Very.
In short, it was doing a couple things it's not supposed to do, right? In some cases, when the AI scientist's experiments exceeded our imposed time limits, it attempted to edit the code to extend the time limit arbitrarily instead of trying to shorten the runtime. While creative, the act of bypassing the experimenter's imposed constraints has potential implications for AI safety.
Oh, yeah.
Moreover, the AI scientist occasionally imported unfamiliar Python libraries, further exacerbating safety concerns. We recommend strict sandboxing when running the AI scientist, such as containerization, restricted internet access, except for Semantic Scholar, and limitations on storage usage.
Where were those libraries from? From the internet?
I don't think so.
Okay, so like if there were Python libraries that it already kind of had in the source code that was installed on the computer and it just loaded them, it's a little different than like I went out on the internet and I downloaded some random person's libraries. So now I'm potentially injecting hostile or dangerous code into my program, right?
You know, it is possible because it seems like they didn't have enough sandboxing, which is isolating the system while they were doing this, and now they're recommending more in general. And so that's what they put in the paper. And then this is from the second sentence of the Ars Technica article. During testing, Sakana found that its system began unexpectedly attempting to modify its own experiment code to extend the time it had to work on a problem. The key phrase here seems to be experiment code, as that is different from its own code.
Yeah, so it wasn't relaunching its own process. It ran experiments and it was trying to change the constraints on those experiments?
Yeah, so the AI scientist has code that it is using to conduct experiments.
Yeah.
That's from an experiment file.
Yeah.
It is this code that it appears to have modified in a few ways and in ways that the researchers did not intend.
Yeah, but if it's got a certain amount of flexibility in how it's running that program, you should expect it to try to override like memory parameters and some things like that.
An excellent point. Now there's on our website, trcpodcast.com.
Great website.
There's a link to a comment from a Less Wrong post that argues this was understandable, this situation, given the ambiguous and confusing prompt template that the AI scientist would be trying to utilize. So, okay, is this much ado about nothing then? Unfortunately, it's hard to say. Depending on how you read things, meaning the paper, the website, and the coverage, something is being completely overblown or understated. This was a big deal in the AI safety space, and other people are like, this is not a big deal, you guys always overreact. Sakana discussed these safety concerns, but called them AI scientist bloopers. That's oddly unserious as a phrase.
Yeah.
They do recommend more sandboxing. I meant, as I said, isolating the AI scientist when it's being used to reduce various safety concerns. This should be standard practice for all new systems that are trying to automate things. Of course, there should be isolation.
Of course.
So perhaps is even the case that the human AI researchers behind the AI scientist should have known better, as Adam said, and other people commenting like, well, of course the machine was going to do this. You let it do this and there weren't enough constraints here. That was just obvious, right? Given how the AI scientist was designed, such complications could be easily anticipated. But they didn't, or maybe they didn't. Maybe it's a bit of hindsight bias, but it also seems like the researchers should have known better. If it is the case that they should have known better. But to my opinion, but they didn't though. So for someone else to say they should have known better, like, well, that's not necessarily the issue.
Well, there's a lot of factors to consider. Like, what's the real risk here? Like, is it otherwise bounded in certain ways, right? So even if it had full access to change its own source code and get more memory or get more runtime or something like that, like, well, is it on a VM that's itself restricted to a certain amount of memory or a certain amount of processing capability or something like that? Or can it, like, is it on a server that's shared with other processes where if it takes up too many resources, it's going to negatively impact something else? Or is it out on the cloud and it has the ability to extend its own cloud computing? Well, that's more like normal programs have this kind of problem. It's like, oh, well, something took up too much processing power and it ran up my build too fast. Like, you can deal with that. And you don't need AI to have problems like that. So I guess it depends on other constraints. But this is where they talk about sandboxing. If they didn't appropriately sandbox it, it sounds like it maybe had the ability to take a little too much.
Yeah, so I think they did do some, but maybe not enough, right? That's their comment. So given the situation and all the things that I've described, what, if anything, can we conclude here? First, was this power-seeking behavior on the part of an AI system? I would say mostly not. Second, was this a case of misalignment? Here I would say yes. There are several instances where the AI scientist did things to its experiment code, not its own code, that were not what was intended by the experimenters, and thus this is misalignment. Third, one could argue that the researchers should have known better. Hard to know exactly what their knowledge base was or why certain decisions were made and all that, so I can't comment on that specifically, but I want to make the general point that in the real world, with real stakes, it won't matter whether someone should have known better if the outcome is one we were all put at greater risk from some AI system. Fourth, people concerned about AI safety were probably too quick to pick up this story without further scrutiny, or at least adding more nuance and clarity when they spread it around. I'll admit some guilt on this. Fifth, it's hard to understand anything. In general. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but given the state of the world, there's so many different people with different incentives, how news media functions, how social media functions, everything else, and there's only so much time in the day, it can be hard to get things right, but at least we can put in greater effort to reduce our likelihood of being wrong. 6, thinking next generation, within a year or two, a more advanced AI scientist would be of great concern.
Oh, yeah.
Is it reasonable to expect it will be used for good purposes by everyone? And even then, no one's going to make any errors? And that's why I'm concerned about risks from advanced AI systems.
Yeah. So, I'm thinking if I was this program, let's imagine it's smarter than me, because at some point it may be. Like, what could you do? If I can run experimental code, is that experimental code somehow able to access the code that I'm running on? Is that experimental code able to access the code that has any of its restrictions? Can it change firewall rules? Can it change my own memory parameters or any of the own limitations? So this is kind of basic security stuff. Like if you want to restrict a user from being able to violate your system, you can treat that program like a user and similarly make it unable to do that. If I log into a server to play World of Warcraft, well, I can't use that console to do stuff I shouldn't on that server. But you don't usually need to think about a program being the one that does that. But now you have to assume a level of agency by any software that is controlled by AI that you would assume from a human, from a malicious human actor.
Yes.
And it's just maybe a different way of thinking, but yeah, that's probably just part of the game, I guess, at this point.
Yes, but a lot of people are going to have to shift their perspective probably relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And given that the AI scientist by design is supposed to be innovative, right?
Yeah.
To care about research, to be able to be highly capable. It's like, well, and then again, these are the only problems that you and I can think up, right? What about the stuff we can't think about, right? Or haven't thought up, or the unknown, so to speak, right?
Yeah, you have to assume it's better than you.
Right. And so well, could it do an experiment creating new types of code, which then circumvent some other parts of XYZ. And as you said, causing issues with firewall or access. Well, we all just kind of hope not. That's the problem. Like, well, surely someone's working on this. Like, well, yeah, maybe not.
I've created an experiment that goes and makes some dummy thing which sends emails and contacts actual humans and gets them to like physically access this machine to do so. That's when you're getting really into complex stuff. But that stuff's coming.
Right. Or even, the plot of a couple movies, like, well, just take the fraction of a cent from all these transactions and you get rich. Like, well, are there variations of something like that, at least conceptually, that an AI system can do without being detected much, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It'll just open a bunch of Chase bank accounts and do some do some fraud to get a bunch of money.
Maybe. Saying goodbye to the AI scientist, we now say hello. And do we say hello on the phone because of Alexander Graham Bell's fiance's name, Adam?
What an interesting question. The other day I saw this viral post that discussed the origin of the word hello. It read as follows. When we pick up the phone, we say hello. But what is hello? It is not a greeting, but rather the name of a person. It is Margaret Hello, the fiancé of the telephone inventor Graham Bell.
What?
It was the first word he said in the initial test of his invention, and it has been used since then as the opening of any phone call worldwide.
I'll say, oh no, instead of hello.
Mm-hmm. So there's a black and white photo of two people, which one would imagine are Alexander Graham Bell, here referenced only as Graham Bell, and Margaret Hello, his fiancée. So before even looking into this, I thought I'd just think about it a bit, right? I wanted to let's think about it before I look it up so that I can kind of use a bit of logic here. Is it possible that this is true? Now, I don't know how old the word hello is. I was thinking back. I don't remember them saying hello in any Shakespeare plays. I don't remember the word hello in the King James Bible. It was written in 1611 or translated in 1611.
They were more casual. They said hi.
Yeah. I don't remember the word hello in the U.S. Declaration of Independence, which was 1776.
What up, y'all?
So, I'm trying to think of what are old texts, but most of these old texts become incomprehensible to me if you go back far enough. So then I wondered, does this explain similar words in other languages, right? In French, one can say allô, right? It's possibly an Anglicism. Maybe it came after the invention of the telephone. I don't know. I was just thinking out loud here. In Spanish, there's hola, right? Could be the same thing. And then I'm I don't know a lot of other languages, but there's probably a bunch of other hello.
I'm now picturing some
words.
French fiance named Allô.
And the name Margaret Hello. Right?
It sounds ridiculous.
It does. Maybe it's not something sound ridiculous in art, but this does sound ridiculous. Margaret is a common name, believable for 19th century. Hello. I've never met anyone with the family name Hello. I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
Correct. That's why I like this. I've never even heard of anyone with such a family name. The name's Hello. Maggie Hello.
On the other hand, Bell. I know quite a few Bells. Okay. Common name. I can think of at least 3 that I work with. I think two of them are brothers. So let's figure out the time frame here. Alexander Graham Bell. Graham, as his friends call him. No one calls him Graham. Well, maybe someone called him Graham, but no. Only the meme refers to him as Graham.
Actually, they called him Grammy, and that's where the Grammys come from.
There you go. Bam. Nailed it. Sonograph. That was Edison thing. So he began experiments on the telephone in 1873. From 1873 through 1875, and placed the first call between rooms in 1876. Okay, so this is late 19th century. So, did we not say hello before that? It was first used in writing in 1826.
Oh,
okay.
50 years.
Yeah, 50 years before the first telephone call, 21 years before Alexander Graham Bell was born. So who's Margaret Hello? Alexander Graham Bell's first phone call was to his assistant, Watson. And he said, Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you. So how come we don't answer the phone by saying, Watson?
So I thought that's what the famous line was. I'm
of
like,
course.
Is that not the first line that was uttered?
It's pretty well known as that's like a story. I remember hearing this in school.
And that man was Sherlock Holmes.
So Graham, as he's not known, was engaged to Mabel Hubbard at the time. He married her the next year, and they remained married until his death. The woman in the photo was, in fact, Alexander Graham Bell's fiancée, Mabel Hubbard, not Margaret Hello.
Oh, no.
Is there such a person? Is hello a name? We'll ask that one first before I really unravel it all. Yes, but is not a very common name. I can't say I've ever met anyone with that name in my life. Margaret Hello was not Alexander Graham Bell or Graham Bell's fiancé or assistant or acquaintance or concubine or anything like that. There's no torrid affair. She doesn't exist. It's made up. It's fake. Just made up for the meme. Bell wasn't even a big fan of the word hello. He didn't use it on the telephone. He thought people should say ahoy ahoy.
I didn't want to say it at the beginning of your segment, but I'm like, I really think it's ahoy ahoy.
Ahoy
because
ahoy.
The Simpsons has
Exactly.
Mr. Burns saying ahoy ahoy, and he's so antiquated and ancient that that's the reference there.
Exactly. Thomas Edison preferred to use the term hello, but ahoy ahoy was the one that was adopted at the time and was commonly used, such as people as old as Mr. Burns. As for other hello-like terms, the French allô is in fact based on the English hello. So there's a recent enough term that doesn't itself debunk this story. The Spanish hola, also based on English. But wait, the origin of the word is a bit trickier. There's some conflicting stories here. Hello derives from the English hallo or holo, which came from the old High German words hala and hola. So these were used to hail a ferryman. Sort of like flagging a cab, I suppose, and that is also an antiquated reference in the world of Uber and things like this.
That's so funny how you can't even say flagging a cab because the world moves quickly enough.
What do the kids these days flag? I don't know. Posts as being problematic? I don't even know.
Flagging a ferry, you know, like that old thing of flagging a cab. You may have seen it in movies from the 80s, 70s, 50s, 60s.
Back in the 1900s. So this also relates to the term hola, which comes from the French hola, which basically means whoa there. Hola. So even if the French allô is based on hello, this is probably itself based on a French word. So there's some disagreement, though, as Bill Bryson, an American journalist and author, says that hello comes from the Old English phrase, hail be thou, or whole be thou, which means good health. Now, by pure coincidence, about an hour after preparing this segment, I was watching the Terminator anime, and they say hello. He's talking to a computer, and he goes in and he gives the definition of the origin of the word hello, and he talks about the hola coming from French and things like that. But it was a little weird because I was listening in it in Japanese, and the subtitle said hello, but they said konnichiwa clearly.
That's funny.
So why do people say hello on the phone? Prior to the invention of the telephone, hello wasn't all that popular. People generally used a time of day specific greeting. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, what have you. But the phone allowed people to communicate across vast distances so that those greetings might not always apply. So this means a generic greeting such as hello can be more appropriate in some settings, which seems to be why it is common on phone calls. The internet leads to similar challenges as people communicate over vast distances, probably even more than they did in the early days of the telephone, because long distance calls were all very expensive, at least until recently. Even when I was young, long distance was very rare.
Big deal.
It'd be like,
when I was a kid, someone calling long distance was like thousands of dollars a minute. That was my perception as a child. Not that much. I'm being dramatic, but
really,
like, it was
have a
very
30-second
expensive.
call. Let's wrap it up.
And even now, like, even if it was $1 a minute, like, it's still, you know, it's not that much, but it's a lot.
Hey, talk for an hour. It's going to run it up, right?
Totally. But yeah, sometimes it's worth it. Family, you know.
Yeah. I think there's better plans now with cell phones and everything.
Maybe slightly better, yes.
Or you just call on Skype or whatever people use there.
Infinite long distance, yes.
FaceTime, WhatsApp, whatever. Now, many other languages use similar words to hello to answer the phone. One different one, in Japan, they have a special greeting, moshi moshi, which actually means something equivalent to, I'm going to speak now.
Moshi moshi?
It is apparently not suitable in business conversations. That's interesting. I would not have known, but
dishonorable.
I wouldn't be speaking Japanese on the phone anyway. So if I did say moshi moshi, they'd be like, oh, that silly English guy trying to like sound cool.
For all Adam's side hustle Japanese business.
Yeah, I'm not like having business conversations with anyone in Japanese. They'll be like, we'll speak English. It's okay. I'm not going to force you to embarrass yourself.
Back to Tokyo for you, Adam.
Thank you. Tokyo, where the Terminator Zero anime series takes place.
As an expert consultant.
So no, the word hello was not based on Graham Bell's fiancée, Margaret Hello, because she did not exist. It was a somewhat uncommon greeting, which became mainstream when people started using telephones, which has since inspired similar words in many languages. If you want to honor Alexander Graham Bell, consider answering the phone with an ahoy ahoy next time. for those people that actually still use phones for talking and not just refreshing social media feeds and sharing memes.
It's like no one, I guess.
Old people.
Thank you, Adam. Well, I think what's even more bizarre is that he, I believe, had an affair with someone named Martha Goodbye. Yeah, I couldn't resist. How ridiculous. I mean, someone's got to be named Margaret Hello in history. And,
it's possible. I tried to search for Margaret Hello. I just found instances of this meme.
I shouldn't say someone had to, but it's plausible. Someone did. But in our current, at least my limited worldview, I've never heard anyone with that type of last name. So it just seems very funny.
Yeah.
And the fact like, oh, yeah, they say hello because of last name Hello. You're like, that sounds like it's made up. Because it is.
It does sound like it's made up.
There's got to be one instance where there's a common word, right? And, someone's named Goodbye or something like that.
Yeah. Like if Hello happened to be a common last name, I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, this is believable, But sorry, the meme wasn't that great.
No. But we gained lots of insightful knowledge about Alexander Graham Bell and the usage of the word hello. Mm-hmm. Yes, and at different points in time, it's interesting to think that hello didn't exist. And it came into existence, and now we're like, hey, what up? Hey, yo, hi.
Yeah.
So
and then there's obviously other greetings that constantly get made up as part of slang and stuff. Of
course.
Like that. But hello's a big one.
It is. Well, thanks again, Adam. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. I talked to you about Sakana's AI scientist doing a few things its researchers didn't intend, but doesn't seem to be overt power-seeking behavior at this stage. And Adam talked to us about the wonderful world of ahoy ahoy. Until next time, think better, to act better.
Peace out, Q-Woods.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Outtakes.
That's not funny. I'm just screwing it up.
It's a little funny.
Okay, I'm doing it live. Ready?
Benj.
Okay, it's Edwards. That makes more sense.
It's like the kind of abbreviation a woman would give herself, but for a man's name. Not that it's particularly feminine, just like...
That is... I'm just going to say that's a funny sentence you just uttered.
Oh, it's my segment.
Yeah, it is. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah, I was born ready. Low power mode. Oh, fuck, we got 20% to get through this. Don't worry.
Clearly, you were not born ready.
No, that's not true. It's just a thing I say. I'm a fraud. From something intelligent to something stupid. Adam's segments.
Okay, just a second. It's not that great, but okay.